Hello everyone, my name is Robertus van der Wege and I have been the juror for this year's Visual Arts League of Lewisville exhibition. This is a members show and there have been a total of 144 individual artists that had submitted works to this particular show. We have examples here of 50 of those works, or 50 artists, a total of 91 works. The exhibition space, I was told, would handle about 80 to 90 pieces. If you submitted a work that didn't happen to get in, I would say please don't give up. This is a better show than what I really thought it was going to be. Part of that comes from the fact that for the first time I had to juror the show on Cafe, which made it very, very difficult when you're looking at very tiny images of work. I really like to be around the work. I like to see the scale of the work. I like to see the texture of the work. I like to see the nuances that exist in the detail. And that was very, very, very difficult to do. So if you didn't get in, I apologize, and I would urge you to continue your efforts. And certainly during this time of the COVID shutdown, this is a great time and a critical time for people to make art. So let's take a moment and take a look at some of the pieces that are in this exhibition. I will say to begin with, as I was looking through the slides and the images that came to me online, that it became very clear to me that this was going to be a very strong textile show, and that there were many entries of soft art that were really outstanding. The things that I tend to look for are, one, has to do with the media and materials. How do you work the media and materials? If you're struggling as you begin working with some new material, it can be difficult. But I look for a mastery of that material. I look for a willingness to experiment with that material, to try to stretch the material and the media beyond what it might normally be capable of. And then I look at the subject. Now, certainly in the cases of things that are abstract, there's no real subject, but I do look at how form is used, how colors relate to each other. I look for texture in the work. I also look for, if there is a subject, what is that subject showing me? Is it showing me something new? Perhaps you're showing me something that I've maybe seen before, or I've seen many, many different variations of. And if you do that, that's great. But I really hope to see in that and looking at those things, an effort on your part to do something a little different with it, to treat it a little bit differently, or put a new vision of your own into it, rather than just copying something that's out there. So let's take a little bit here and walk around this exhibition, which has been very, very nicely presented and hung. One of the pieces that captured my attention in the early juring was this photograph by Ricky Sanders. I'd lived in Hawaii for quite some period of time and went to graduate school there. So I loved this particular image, which he calls Pele's touch. Pele is the goddess of fire, and she depicts herself often in the volcanoes in Hawaii. And this wonderful image that has the starkness of the black and white, a real old black and white traditional photograph, but then these specks of brilliant color that sort of move through the work, I think are really, really outstanding. There's a lot of emotion. There's some great centers of interest that your eye is drawn to, and this wonderful sort of flowing continuation between what is the steam and the water and the lava rock that makes up this particular image. It's with regrets I was told that this particular piece, because it was mounted on metal, was not going to be eligible for an award. This is a photograph by Denise Remford. It's called Moose Munch. When I first saw it, I really thought, it's not possible to capture all of these elements in one photograph. And yet, when I had a chance to talk to her later, I was really delighted to find out that this was actually the result of her taking a lot of time and waiting. She had begun to see a family of, in this case, a cow and 2 calves coming down to drink, and waited until the opportunity was just right. I really commend the way she has worked this, because we're not only do we have a lot to take in here, but our eye is really pulled in by the tremendous detail. Usually when we focus, we might focus over here on this family of moose and kind of off in the distance see this all as a blur. But there's wonderful, wonderful intimacy and detail in each individual part of this, in the sky, in the reflection of the water. And I really find that this is a pretty remarkable piece of photography. This is a drawing by Cassidy Schreibner. When I first saw this particular work, I was a little perplexed by it. And I wanted to include one of the examples of this particular artist, and I was just delighted when I had the chance to see it up close and personal. This is a drawing done with a ballpoint pen, a commercial ballpoint pen. This is not a normal drawing instrument. One of the things that when you teach drawing classes and you give a person a pencil or a piece of charcoal, they begin to take it and use it like they're going to draw, instead of holding it in a way that they can use their entire body with making the image. And so I was absolutely fascinated with the subtle detail and all of the experimentation that happened with basic mark making. All of that variation that came through to create the darks and lights and the cross-hatching and the subtlety in this particular ballpoint pen. This is one of the other pieces that I looked at and was absolutely fascinated with in terms of particularly the craftsmanship and workmanship. This is by Karen Stone, and it's called Sacred. A textile piece that has some interesting variations going on around the edges, which basically involve quite often animal forms, or nature forms in one way or another. But then these wonderfully consistent sort of foliage pieces or feather-like pieces that overlap with each other. And I was really fond of the fact that even in the stitchery work, these rounded raised forms were pulled out of the surface so that when we light a textile, and textiles tend to absorb the light, this one has a little bit of reflective quality, enough that we can begin to see these very soft, subtle, dark areas under each of these little looped circular forms throughout the piece. And it begins to create a wonderful shadow across the surface, adding and enhancing to the textile's texture of it.